Having successfully launched 3 businesses, bilingual mum to 2 and entrepreneur Antonia Brown has connected with thousands of people, both French and international, since moving to the French Riviera. These connections allow her to speak with successful local businesses and inspirational people about life here on the Côte d'Azur and share it with you. Welcome to the Riviera Firefly podcast with your host, entrepreneur, and my mum, Antonia Brown.
Riviera Fireflies. I'm here in the studio recording the next episode in the education series, and I am thrilled to have my 2 favourite people in the whole wide world with me today. Jingle maker extraordinaire, filmmaker, and my son, Louis.
Hello everyone.
And Daisy is my collegienne, nearly 13-year-old, so I'm soon going to have 2 teenagers in the house. Hi Daisy.
Hey!
Okay, guys, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. We've had to negotiate quite a bit to get to this point. But what I'm hoping for is that we can share some of your experiences, really from the horse's mouth, so to speak, what it's like to be in the schooling system here in France. So, I'm going to ask you a question that I'm going to be asking all my guests in 2017. I want you to roll back all those years to when you were young, when you were little, in your childhood. Can you share with me, and let's keep it in the theme of the school, a favourite childhood memory? Louis.
Alright, so I'll go first, shall I then? Alright, so my memory, one of the earliest memories I have actually of French schooling would be in maternelle, when we, every lunch break, we would get 30 minutes to play on these tricycles, and you were a cool kid if you got onto the tricycles. And that was the only way to become popular in my school.
I do remember also lots of marble and Pokemon swapping in the playground.
Yeah, that was more in primary though. Like that was a bit older than maternelle. Yeah,
might have been in CP. I remember you coming home with stacks and stacks of Pokemon, and you were managing to sort of buy favour and cut and negotiation. That was the currency in schools.
I started off with absolutely 0 Pokemon, and somehow I ended up with loads.
And Daisy, well, you were here in, you started in maternal, because you were very little when we moved to France. You were about 9 months old, and that's really where you learnt all your French, was in school. You hadn't been to any creches in England or anything like that. So I remember you going to maternelle in Cagnes-sur-Mer, and then in Biot, and then you went to primary, an international primary school in Valbonne. What can you remember back from those early days back in school?
Well, I wouldn't say it was one of my favourite childhood memories, but one thing I can remember quite well was the lunches in the Biot. So it was a 5-course lunch. So it started as your starters.
Yeah.
Then you had your main course. Then you had cheese, then bread, and then you finished with dessert.
Well, that's really quite amazing to have in school lunches. I know that back in England, poor old Jamie Oliver's really campaigning against the school lunches that they got there. So you really are having gastronomic meals in the schools over here. Whether you enjoyed them or not, perhaps that's a different question. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that. Another one of my favourite questions that I like to ask people, and it's brilliant that I got you 2 here, is to do with your top tips for living on the Côte d'Azur. This is part of my Facebook group, Côte d'Azur Living, really sharing tips and ideas for living on the Côte d'Azur. You, as teenagers here in the area, come on, give us the inside scoop on something.
One of my favourite places to go to is this place in Montserrat. It's called Salto. So some of you might know this, others might not. And basically, in a nutshell, it's a room filled with trampolines. And it's really, really good fun. Great way to spend an afternoon.
Yeah, and I bet amazing exercise for you too.
Oh yeah, it's very, very tiring.
What do you do? Backflips and all that kind of stuff?
You can do anything you want. You just have to respect the rules of 1 person per trampoline, and then apart from that, you can do what you want.
And I have to admit to having been there myself several times, I've even taken Adolan there, and there's that big pit full of foam or something, isn't there?
Yeah, you can jump off this huge sort of diving boardy area into this foam pit, and you can do backflips off the diving board and stuff. It's very fun.
But you mustn't, no. And what about you, Daisy?
Well, my favourite place to go is the Polygon, which is a new shopping centre that's just opened up. It has cinemas, well, obviously, shopping
got shops. It's a
Shops.
brand new outlet, isn't it, in Cagnes-sur-Mer?
Yeah, it's in Cagnes-sur-Mer and it's an outside place.
It's really beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. And what's fantastic is that Cap Trois Mules as well has upped its game now that we've got the Polygon. And what I'll do with both Salto and Polygon is put the web links in the show notes so that if anyone wants to go and see them, they can. Okay, brilliant. Well, let's move on then. Let's roll on because I want to talk a little bit about the international sections. You're both in international sections, not in the same school. Louis, you were up first, weren't you? So you took the exam for the CIV
Yeah,
and Fenelon.
yeah.
What do you remember about either of those?
Well, I know that the CIV one, that was in French for me, but just because
Yeah, it's
I
changed
was
now,
English.
but it was
yeah. That was in French. And what I remember for both of them was that it was text and then some questions on it. And for the Fenelon one, I remember they took us into this big room and you had to all sit down next to each other. It's actually where I first met my best friend. He was sitting a couple of rows next to me.
Nice. Yeah.
So I think my text was about, I think it was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah.
Just an extract from that. And you just have to answer some questions about it, a couple of descriptive answers.
Is it multiple choice or would you?
No, it was more you had to write full sentences, stuff like that. It wasn't, for me, I didn't find it particularly hard.
And you would have had an interview probably where you'd have had to
Yeah.
talk.
They're in the interviews. It's not so much questions. You just really talk about yourself and what you like doing, and I talked about how I liked reading horrible histories at the time, and it's just you really talk about yourself. That's it.
Now, Daisy, you actually passed the test much earlier, and I covered that in a different podcast in episode 2 and episode 3, so we don't need to talk about that here. I just wanted you to do a little add-in. You did have people that took the test for the ASEICA system, people that weren't in the system already. Did they give you any feedback, any information on anything that happened for them?
Well, they did have to do an essay in French and English.
Yeah.
Which is basically an essay. They had to do lots of reading comprehension.
Yeah.
And an oral interview in both languages, so English and French. I remember a French friend who didn't keep an eye on the time and spent too long on the English section of the test.
Oh no!
And then didn't complete the French section, so she didn't pass the test.
Oh, right. So timekeeping is pretty important. Yeah, I suppose like any exam, you do have to watch the clock and plan your time appropriately. Okay, that was really useful. Thanks for that. Louis, I know that you passed the test for both, so bravo. We were really happy back in the day. You got into the CIV and Fenelon, and we had a sort of family discussion about that, didn't we? And in the end, for personal reasons and what have you, and also because you met that guy in the test.
Yeah, I met a lot of people actually that went to Fenelon before going there.
Okay.
So
although we know that they were both really good schools, great reputations, you chose Fenelon. And Daisy, because you were already in the section, the international section, you chose to go into the ASEICA system and not to go to Fenelon. Fine. So let's have a little think. They're quite different, aren't they? Because Daisy, you, how does it work for you in CZM? So what lessons do you do in English?
Well, you do the same thing as primary, except it's more developed, and it's basically you're doing the.
What subjects do you do in English? Was it history?
Oh yeah, history, and that's it.
And some geography?
Yeah, well, history, geography is the same thing, but.
Okay, so you're doing history and geography lessons plus English literature. So you do reading and English language, and everything else now is in French. So all your maths, your physical education and sport, that's all done in French. Is that the same for you, Louis?
Yeah. I have some lessons I have which are in English and in French.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of my lessons are in French.
Okay, and you both do extra hours. So that's the important thing once you're in college.
Yeah.
Is that you're doing the same curriculum as everyone else. What time do you generally start in the morning?
I always start at 8.
Well, it depends on the day, but most of the time I start at either 8 or 9.
And what time do you finish?
Earliest I finish in the week, apart from Wednesdays, is 3.
Well, I finish every day at 5, except for the Friday when I finish at 4.
So that's a really long day.
Yeah.
8 till 5. That's longer than some people work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is because you're doing extra hours to do the lessons in English. Yeah. Now, Daisy, I know that in your school, how many classes of CZM were there?
There were 5 classes of CZM.
So for an intake of 5, and how many international classes are there in CZM?
Well,
there were 3 levels.
there were 3 levels of international. So there was Group A, which was the most developed, who are more able to speak.
Yeah, so that's usually the bilingual
the
English
bilingual.
speakers, yeah.
And then you've got Group B, which are like only write in English, but their oral isn't as good, or the opposite.
Yeah.
And then you've got Group C, where it's just you're a beginner, but like you still know more English.
Yeah, and you're showing so lots of the French children, for example, they might be in the Group C because they're showing great aptitude and ability in English, but they're not yet at a bilingual. And I know that with the CIV system, later on everyone will be at the same level. Everyone's going to be just as bilingual, but they just sort of stream it to start with, which is a great idea. Do they stream in Fenelon, Louis?
No, not at all. It's all just one class for everything. We stay in the same actual school classroom for most lessons. Actually, we just change class for like sciencey lessons and everything that's.
So you go to a science lab then?
Yeah, exactly. Apart from that, we always stay together.
Okay, so that's quite a big difference, and I don't know if we've quite explained that properly. Is that in the ASEICA systems in Eganord and Nikki, you'll do your English lessons in your international section, but when you're doing other classes like geography in French or sport in French, you get mixed up with people that are not in the English section. Whereas Louis, in Fenelon, it's an international section, and when you go and do any subject, you stay in your international class. Are there any positives to that? Any things that you don't? Well,
to be honest, I like it's sort of like a family bubble. So the whole of our classes, we're always together. So everyone knows everyone's last name, everything about them, their age, their birthday. So it feels like a big family because we've been together for 5 years. Obviously, there's been some people that have left and joined and stuff like that, but apart from that, we've always stayed together.
Whereas in your system, Daisy, every year you get kind of mixed up again. So that happened to you today, this year, which was a bit of a shock, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, because I wasn't put in the same class as my best friend, but I still was with her for 5 lessons out of 10 or.
And you've got to meet many more people now. So actually, we're seeing it more positively, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's only it's more in classes that are mixed with international and French section. There are more of it's a split. It's usually the French section who always stay together, and then the English section who always stay together.
Okay. I remember before you actually started in Fenelon, Louis, people would say to me, "Oh, the building, it's really gross," or something like that. And it wasn't actually till I went and had a look around that I realised that what people were saying on social media wasn't entirely correct. What would you add to that?
Well, no, because actually the building where everyone said was really ugly didn't actually belong to the school. It belonged to, I don't know, I think it belonged to the old perfume factory owners.
Okay.
And so the school were constantly trying to buy that piece of land so that they couldn't knock it down. Because what all the teachers called it and all the kids called it was the Bronx. Because it was an old, warehouse which had been abandoned and the roof was collapsing.
So not really part of the school at all.
It wasn't at all. No. The teachers used the area around it as a parking lot, so it wasn't at all anything to do with us.
And the international section then, where was that?
Yeah, that was in the new parts. They built this. Well, I don't know if they built it. I think they renovated it.
Okay.
And it was all brand new. Everything was really, really nice. And now that I've gone up to Lycée, they've just done a huge renovation on that, and the Lycée is amazing.
I've heard
really
the science
beautiful.
labs are supposed to be amazing.
Yeah, they're brand new as well. We've got computers on every single desk. So.
And really, both of you quite lucky because Cesar as well. Although it's not what's it known as? It's got a nickname from the outside, the prison or something like that, because it's not a rendered building. It's just a grey concrete. But inside, again, it's really cool, isn't it? What about your gymnasium?
Well, in my gym we have a huge climbing wall.
Yeah.
Huge, and you can do loads of activities. And we've got an outdoor gym, which obviously you play football, badminton, all those type of games. And then in the inside, you can also play badminton, and there's ping pong and climbing and gymnastics.
You have an excellent sports program there, actually. Yeah. So on a Wednesday afternoon, you can sign up and stay, don't you?
You stay the whole afternoon practically.
If you want,
to either do, there's ping pong, there's badminton, there's wall climbing, and there's football and rugby.
And I think as well as an extracurricular, there's also some choir that...
There is a choir, but it's on Wednesday afternoon and also in your lunch hours, which is...
Okay. Yeah, good. Great. So what other extracurricular do you have, Louis? Again, you have a good sports program in Fenelon. I know they do rugby once you're in Lycée.
Yeah, they've got lots of other sports. I think they're doing gymnastics for the girls this year.
Yeah.
and
Swimming
swimming.
was
Yeah,
another one,
swimming, and they're not doing basketball, I don't think, this year, but that's because the renovations.
Oh,
of
that
the,
playground, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay, and I know that theatre is something that's offered
Mhm,
international
yeah.
theatre, so in English, which for me has always been a really important thing. I know in college, Louis, you did do theatre, didn't you?
Yeah, I did theatre all the way till the end of troisième,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was great fun. It wasn't like the conventional theatre where you have to learn a play every single year. I think in sixième we just did fun games and theatre-related games and stuff like that. Then in cinquième we did a proper play, and it was a play that we wrote ourselves, not
Yeah, it was really
directly wrote.
very
We all
good.
contributed towards it.
Yeah.
I, in fact, even came up with the theme for it, so I was very proud of that.
And in Daisy, in your schools, in the college of the ASEICA program, there is theatre, isn't there?
There is theatre in the ASEICA programme, but there's not theatre in my school, so you've got to take a bus. Well, you can't take a bus, you've got to get a lift there. And it's on Tuesday nights right now. And if, for example, I finish at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, and theatre starts at 5:15, so you've got to get out of the school quickly, which takes
So that
about 10
has been a
minutes.
bit of a disadvantage,
Yeah.
I suppose, of not being in the CIV college itself, is that the theatre is offered in the CIV, and unless we could have figured out some carpooling, which we weren't able to, so maybe once you get to lycée you'll be able to join that programme, but it's not currently available to you. Louis, one other thing in Fenelon you did, which I personally think has been amazing, is the MUN. What does that stand for?
Yeah, Model United Nations.
What year does that start in?
Well, in my school it starts in quatrième.
Yeah.
And I think that was the first year I did it, yeah. I did it
What is it?
quatrième. It's, you know, the United Nations, where they get around and debate a topic.
Mhm.
It's exactly the same as that, except it's kids.
Okay.
So, obviously they're not using the same
Do you
language.
remember what
we try
topic
to.
you had to do back in quatrième?
Oh my gosh. I think I was political, and it was something to do with, I was India,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on the political committee. I think the topic I had was about refugees and refugees in Syria and civilians in
So what do
Syria.
you have to
and
do? You
stuff
have to
like
go and learn, go and read up about the subject?
Yeah, you have to do a lot of research.
Mhm.
You have to be prepared to do a lot of research on
This
that
is
specific
in addition
topic.
to your normal
Yeah,
school homework.
Yeah. And so then you have to write a resolution. This is all by yourself. And then when you get there, you have to group up with these other people, so that you don't know, not that you don't necessarily
other
know.
schools?
Yeah, from other schools. Like Eganod.
I see. So it's like an inter-college.
Yeah. And so then you have to write a resolution with them, and then that gets presented to your whole committee.
Wow.
And then after that, it gets presented to the General Assembly if it passes. So that's pretty.
And is there a vote or anything?
Yeah, you have to vote to see each in the General Assembly, which is every single country. There's like 4 people usually for each country, and then the ambassador of each country would have 1 vote, and so then you'd have 1 vote per country on the resolution.
And I know you're still doing that. You're now in lycée, so is it still going to be against Eganod? Do you still stay local?
Well, no. This year we're actually going to Lyon.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Last year I went to Antibes.
Yeah.
And then the year before that was Eganod.
Yeah,
so it changes.
And I know it's done as well in the CIV system, but once again, unfortunately, there's a problem with transport, isn't there, to the CIV. So once you're in the lycée, we're hoping that you'll get to join that, won't we?
Yeah.
Because I know they go to The Hague and things like that with the CIV. Okay. Well, guys, I can't think of any other questions to ask you. I really want to thank both of you for sharing your little insight into the different schooling systems. Basically, you both really love your schools, don't you?
Yeah.
And you're both really happy in them.
Yeah.
And of course, like any school, there's homework and things like that.
Yeah.
But, in terms of having a French and an English system that's affordable, it's a great balance. You're going to get the baccalaureate out of it with the Option Internationale. And, Louis, soon we're going to be looking at next steps.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll address that perhaps in another podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you ever so much. I'm going to reference everything that we talked about in the show notes. And Louis will give a big shout out to your YouTube channel, which is
Film Crisis Studios.
So this is your new venture that you're doing with some of your friends from Fenelon.
Yep.
You've been making your own movies, writing them,
Yep.
editing them, doing all the special effects.
Directing.
And remind us again of the name?
Film Crisis Studios. We're actually going to be releasing something on Christmas Day. So if you subscribe to our channel and try to like every video that we posted, that'd be really, really helpful.
Brilliant. And Daisy, I know that big things are coming for you too. Handball champion extraordinaire. We'll give a shout out to, what's the name of your handball team?
HBDC, which is Handball des Collines.
Yeah, and you absolutely love it. It's a team sport, and they're looking for more people to join the teams from all ages, boys and girls, and even adults. Maybe this year or in September. Guys, thank you ever so much. It's been a pleasure. One final thing that we didn't actually cover altogether is to do with the religious aspect of Fenelon. It is a Catholic school, and I do talk a little bit in a blog on kidderland.com about some of the different schools locally. For Fenelon, just as a FYI, the aumônerie, as it's called, is an opt-in. So you don't actually have to do all the mass and the confirmation and the first Holy Communion. That is really down to the individual and down to the child. And we did talk about it with Louis, and he made his choice, which is obviously personal to him. But that was just a question that we received via email, and I just wanted to add that in. Okay, Fireflies, that's us. Thanks a lot. Bye.
This episode was brought to you by Riviera Firefly for Côte d'Azur Living by your host and my mum, Antonia Beauvoisin-Brown. Please subscribe, like and share. Until the next time, au revoir les Fireflies.